Welcome back to the Jiu-Jitsu Dummies, everyone. Sponsored by Fightback CBD. Get 15% off your CBD order at fightbackcbd.com. Use code JJD at checkout. Also want to thank one of our newer sponsors, Flow and Roll, at flow _ the letter N _ roll. It's Flow and Roll on Instagram. They sell really cool jiu-jitsu t-shirts and other apparel online. You can check them out at flowandroll.com and get 10% off your order. Same code JJD. But you really got to check out this their Instagram. On their Instagram, you're going to see all the custom work that they do. You can get your belt embroidered or custom gis, no-gi shorts. They do all of that. MMA shorts, everything. All right, we're working with them on a Jiu-Jitsu Dummies gi that'll go probably mostly out to our Patreon winners. I'm not sure if we're going to have it for sale, but I think it's going to be for winners, so it'll be an exclusive. And stay tuned to the end of the episode. We'll talk about all the giveaways that we're doing. We've got some really cool stuff going on. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. It's episode 21, quarantine show number 6. Hopefully this is the last quarantine show. I actually invited Junior, everybody, but Junior's got a new gig, so he wasn't able to make it. Hopefully he'll be with us on episode 22. I am Milton Campus, purple belt, fight sports, Coral Springs. Still rolling solo. These are solo drills. But with me today is Renzo Gracie black belt, John Combs. Welcome, John. Thank you for being with us.
Heck yeah, I'm happy to be here, man. It's going to be a good time.
Very cool, very cool. So go ahead. I hate giving everybody's resume because I don't like to forget anything. So go ahead and tell people a little bit more about yourself, how long you've been training, when you got your black belt, where you're training currently with this whole quarantine situation. But go ahead and give us a rundown.
Yeah, man. So I got started, I was 14 in 2005. My mom thought, a kid in, teenage years could use more things to do than just video games. Okay. So suggested I go try the summer conditioning program for my high school wrestling team. Really liked it. Wasn't very good, but I definitely, yeah.
I have a similar story with wrestling, but go ahead.
So got started, enjoyed it, and, went through high school, wrestled all 4 years there, dabbled in a little bit of jiu-jitsu. Actually got in my junior year, somebody challenged me to a wrestling match.
Oh,
and
challenge.
So do you know, have you ever seen the movie, I forget the Jonathan Lipnicki? Do you know the actor? I forget the movies he was in, but I was like way back in the day. But I went to high school with him.
Okay.
And he challenged me to a match, and I double-legged him real quick, put him down, and then I'm just smashing him from half guard, and he grabs a Kimura and puts it behind my back, and I'm like, what?
What is this magic that you have?
Yeah. Like, how could you beat me? Your shoulders were on the floor. What's going on here? And that kind of instilled the initial curiosity in it.
Right.
And, in between my junior and then freshman year of college, so junior high school, freshman year of college, didn't do that much jiu-jitsu. I was more kind of dinking around. I was playing the UFC video game a lot. That was kind of yeah. In between senior year of high school and college, that was a substantial portion of my time.
I mean, it's good prep. It's good training prep,
Yeah. Well, if what I'm doing 10 years in the future, man.
Yeah.
Not too bad. So dabbled a little bit there. In college, I went to CU Boulder, graduated in 2015. But I went here because they had a club wrestling team. They accepted me. I just figured it'd be a good fit. And wrestled with them for 3 years. I All-Americaned in 2011 by placing fourth at NCWA. So that's club wrestling. And following that, I wrestled my junior year as well. That one didn't go quite so well because a lot of Division I teams actually dropped a club.
Okay.
And it's this Liberty University, the very skilled wrestling team. Mm-hmm. And their A guy beat me in the stinking quarters, and then their B guy beat me in the blood round. They both beat me by 1 point. And there was this great picture of me in the last 2 seconds of the match. They trying to get a single leg, and the guy's coach just going like, ah! Like that. And there's a funny moment, a sad moment for me, but good to take a little humor away from that. But then right after that, man, I jumped in, did Pan Ams. So after really a devastating loss in wrestling, and actually I imagine most high school wrestlers would say the same. After high school wrestling ended, I hit a big depression, And then when I stopped wrestling in college, and I didn't slow down at all. I just said I'm just going to go to jiu-jitsu. There was no break, there was no depression like there was in high school. So I just jumped right into jiu-jitsu and got my cauliflower ear in 2012 at Pan Am's.
Cool.
How
old are you at that point? You said you came right out of college.
Yeah, so that would have been 2012. That would have been right around my junior year of college. I was 21 at the time, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, 21 to 22. That's right. When I I went to Pan Am's initially, and then did pretty well in 2012 up until August. Then I got a really bad knee injury that it actually sidelined me for about a year and a half. So during that time, I focused on school, did pretty well there. I got my emergency medical technician B. I actually, all things, I got EKG certified. So that like heart machine monitor.
Oh yes, I know it very well.
Yeah, I can actually read that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, not well. Not well.
I got my little EKG from the day I had my heart attack on my arm as part of my jiu-jitsu tattoo. So
yeah. So dabbled in a little bit of that, and then came back. Thought I might want to do some MMA in 2013, and then trained with Elevation Fight Team for a lot. They're out of Denver, Colorado. Justin Gaethje just had an amazing performance.
Oh yeah, that was a great fight.
Yeah, Drew Dober. He's ranked now. So like the team's doing really well. So I started training with them in right around 2013, right when the team started. And, dabbled with it a little bit, but then did a couple sparring sessions, got rocked around a little bit, and it was just, not for me. And decided just to focus on jiu-jitsu and finish my degree, and that ended up going pretty well. So as I went through school, in 2014, that was kind of the year where I went from like just a tough purple belt to, I started to have some decent, engagements. Like at the beginning of 2014, I was letting people armbar me to pass guard, standard wrestler. Go ahead and do it, bro. And then it's on YouTube too. This guy Ben Hodgkins. He was at the ADCCs. We had a match in 2014. It's on YouTube, and it's pretty funny because I pass, I think, on a Kimura. Like somehow I just jump over a Kimura, and then I get to mount real quick, and then he gets back to guard, and somehow I got 7 points.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. So it's a funny match. And then as 2014, 2015 went through, purple belt went well. And then at the end of 2015 with the first fight to win pro in Denver, Colorado, I was a brown belt going against a black belt, and I submitted him, with arm and guillotine. That was kind of the first big breakout. And then 2016 had a really good run at Pan Am's at brown belt. Won that when 3 arm and guillotines, a Darsena toe hold, and then black belt.
That's your move. Let me interrupt you for a second. Is that your move? I just got my Flow Grappling subscription, so now I'm like, I'm studying my my interviewees here. So they said something like the Comzatine or something they called it.
So in 2016 in Buenos Aires, Argentina, I was there with the Flow Grappling team. Ricardo Mendolia, he was one of their head commentators. And when I was doing one of my matches, I'd done very well Pan Am's with that arm and guillotine, and so they were talking about it. And while I never hit a guillotine there, they were just talking about it, named it the Combatine. Okay. And so now, Combatine, so that was his name for it. And it just kind of stuck, and it was a good, that was my first competition at black belt. And then since then, I'll go look up BJJ Heroes right now. I think I have 12 guillotines. I'm not entirely sure, but
the Skype ID makes sense now. Your Skype ID makes sense now.
Yeah, absolutely. So
run at black belt at Pan Am's, and then where did you go?
At brown belt.
At brown belt, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then that was kind of the peak ego for me. It was right after I won Pan Am's. I kind of I remember somebody telling me, "Oh, dude, you were on such a roll there. You looked amazing." And I was like, "What are you talking about? That was just me. That was normal." I was like, "No, the rest of black belt wasn't like that, man." And most. My record is 49 and 41. That's my record, and then I have just about, between guillotines and arm and guillotines, that counts for exactly 50% of my win rate. I have 19 submissions by guillotine.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can name your own move, or someone can name a move after you.
That's the thing, right? Like you can't. You
earned it. All right.
Yeah, I didn't name myself. Somebody else did. Now I can own it.
I've got a move. I've had a move named for me. They call it the Abu Ghraib.
Ooh.
Yeah, it is when I wear a T-shirt over my rash guard and lay on your face in the north-south position.
Waterboard.
Yeah, they get waterboarded, they can't breathe, and they tap. So the belly has a little something to do with it too. But yes, it's been. I have my own move.
I've recently been training in the kimono a little bit.
Okay.
You know, like imaginary training with imaginary people. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
And, yeah, dude, I remember I was on bottom of a mount, and just the lapel came over my face, and like my anxiety just like spiked like 200 out of 100, and then like 2 seconds later, I'm like, John, you've been here 10,000 times. Breathe in through your nose, chill out, off balance, let's get out of here. And then it was just like for 1 second, I totally threw everything to the wind, and then calmed down, did my escape, and got out of there. But dude, not being able to breathe there is like you just need to mentally prepare for that.
So
yeah,
are you training? Are you still training gi? Or again, I saw an interview with you that said you're gonna be focusing on gi. I don't know how old that interview was. I think it was Submission Underground 4.
Yeah,
when you fought Gilbert Burns.
Yeah, ooh, that was a while ago. And I would say since then, because that was in 2017. So that was a while ago. And I was a bit more focused on the no-gi then. I've always kind of been 50-50 no-gi since I picked it up. I mean, historically speaking, from like 2010 to like 2016 at Easton Training Center in Boulder, I would train 90% in the gi, 90% of my training. But if you add up my wrestling and then the time I spent 2017 on, it's about half and half.
Okay.
So most of my initial early learning phases was in the kimono. And then, took off the kimono and started to have some things work out pretty well in the no-gi and focus with it. That's funny that I said it in that podcast because, you take a look 3.5 years later, you've done some impressive things in no-gi. I've done some okay things in the gi, but let's focus on the no-gi first. We can talk about that later.
Let's give. Let me jump in here and just give JitzKing a big shout out. JitzKing Promotions. Can't wait to see you perform on the June 13th event. You can check it out exclusively on Flow Grappling, right? They're not going to have an audience. I just talked to Eddie today. I think I may be going up. Not 100% sure. So still have my Flow Grappling subscription. Hey, Flow Grappling. Thank you, guys. Okay. I'm ready for tournament season, but, this one, again, for most people, I'd rather be at the event. I'm more of I like the experience of the event, but, I'll take it if I don't wind up going. So, how do you feel competing right now when there's not going to be an audience? Does it make any difference to you whatsoever? Is it better, worse? Don't care.
So I'll say the one time I got really bad anxiety was that first Fight to Win in 2015. Mm-hmm. That was my first time ever competing underneath the lights on a raised stage, and it's almost always some variety of that. And during that exchange, I was just overcome by anxiety. Mm. And then I'd say just about every time I do it, I just get a little bit better at handling that anxiety than I was before. And at this point, I'm pretty good at handling it, man. I've visualized in my head how it's going to go. I see the warm up happening. Not having the crowd there is something I'm visualizing and preparing for. Mm-hmm. And I usually, it's usually not such a big problem with the lights and everything. So I'm preparing for a very different day of the event than I would normally have, especially the first 3 to 5 hours, because I'm anticipating that the tournament's going to take about 6 hours, something like that, a long time, because they're going to have to desanitize the mats after every match. It's going to take a huge amount of time. So, I'm sure some of my rivals are listening, but you need to mentally prepare yourself for hours in between your matches. And that was a big key of my success at the ADCC trials was, not you show up to an average tournament, like a local Fight to Win or another type of event. You have your event start and it should end within 2 hours ish. Usually it's about how it goes. But these are crazy tournament events, these crazy super fights. You just don't know what the time's going to be like in between. The past 2 super fights I had this year, one was at 11:15, the other was at 11:30 p.m. And I anticipated that by pushing my sleep schedule back and visualizing and preparing for that day. Normally I'm in bed by 9:30, 10, but I was getting to bed at 2:30 in anticipation of that. So a lot of that visualization and preparing for it. And this tournament's going to be weird. It's going to be really weird. There are going to be no fans. There's going to be you and your competitor probably going to be isolated. You're going to go out there. There'll probably be a cameraman or two, the referee. and there won't be any coaching. So it's going to be weird. It's going to be a lot like private training, if it's just you and somebody else in a room with one person watching. And I think that's an environment upon which I thrive. So I'm actually really looking forward to this event.
How much does the visualizing play into your training? You said that a few times. Is that something that you're always doing, even, you said you trained this morning, is that something that you're only doing in preparation for matches, but are you always thinking in that sense?
So it's something I encourage my students to do. So when I start practices here, I have about 15 minutes before practice where we're just hanging out, we're talking, we're foam rolling, using the So Right. I've got a whole I got an armory of things that I have that people just foam roll. We're just chilling, 15 minutes hanging out. Then 5 minutes of active stretching. I don't like to there's some passive stretches that are good. I need to talk to a mentor of mine and figure out those and kind of outline what passive stretches might work before. In my opinion, I had a lifting coach that would really heavily emphasize that active stretching before prepares your muscles to take load, whereas when you do passive stretching before, it interferes with the communication of your muscles, so it actually makes you more likely to get injured. So I would suggest a lot of passive stretching after your activity. I wouldn't suggest it doing a lot of passive stretching before. There are some that are good, but just by and large, active stretching. And then from there, also do some glute dominance, which are some exercise I talked about on a podcast 2 days ago. And it's probably something I should do a video on because it forms a big component of what I spend day to day doing, trying to enhance my athleticism, which just means you're trying to make the posterior chain, which is the fascia from your forehead down to your toes, goes through your glutes, your lower back, your hammies, trying to get that stronger. And the front side of your body a little quieter with the myofascial release, then the glute dominance. And then from there, to get to what we started talking to, the visualization and solo drilling. So I have 5 minutes outlined for people to solo drill before. And what I always try to emphasize, if they're early students, then it's just side-to-side bridging, come up to turtle, sit down. So, and that's super easy, basic combo. It's like A, B, A. You're doing that simple sequence. But then as you start to get more sophisticated, I encourage them to connect a motor function, your solo drill that you're doing with that side-to-side bridging, shrimping, coming up on a single leg, weight-bearing posture, attacking from mount, any number of things you can be doing, like in John Danaher's solo drilling DVD that's free. If you're watching, you want to go get it. On BJJ Fanatics, he goes over, this entire, he outlines everything for you. He tells you how to get it done, and it's free. And it's just sitting there for you.
Is that the newest free one they're giving? I know I saw you had a little a post on Instagram showing people how to go through. Is that their latest free one just for the quarantine?
It's still free, man.
Okay.
I got to give credit to those guys. They came in and they really dominated that sector of the industry, because they did it right with the right people. But man, they've taken care of the athletes. They're taking care of the community when they need them. They directly talk to the athletes. They're a lifeline for people such as myself coming up that would not have had available anything like it. So, just grateful for all these instructionals. But to get back to the solo drilling. So every solo drill should have a sensory stimulus that you want to connect to your motor function. All that means is if you're bridging side to side, you want to imagine, am I getting out of side control? Am I trying to off balance from mount? What am I really trying to do here? So when you combine that that imagined sensory input with the motor function, it kind of like when you're actually playing, it's like a video game where you see the information coming in, you press a button in your brain, and the motor response happens instantly. And that's where a human reaction time is 1/4 of a second. And that's where a lot of the best guys start to really function well, is that they absorb the information, and then within within half a second, they observe and then they do. And there's no lag in the thought process there. And that's what you're trying to create when you're solo drilling. And that's what you're doing when you're drilling. That's what you're doing when you're training. You're trying to reinforce these neural networks so that you can observe a stimulus, respond to it, and have the outcome that you want to have happen. So that relates to the whole visualization while you're drilling. And then the visualization I think you were talking a little bit more about when we got there is more about what do I do day of? And a big thing for me that I discovered from 2013 until 2018, right before the ADCC trials, was how much my anxiety the day of the event would affect my performance. Okay. So a big thing that I started to think about was how can I get myself to suffer as little, to waste as little energy or mental, physical, spiritual, whatever you want to call it, before the actual event itself, and just try to get 100% of my resources to that event, so that when I step out on that mat, as much of me is there as possible, not letting, waking up late, hitting traffic, not getting the warm up right, not weighing in right, not having the right, all these different things that can absorb some of your focus and energy. Trying to reduce that with planning as best you can and anticipate the bullcrap that can happen. And then when all of that comes together, the odds of you having a good performance might only have gone up by 1 or 2%. But shoot, man, with the grappling nowadays, dude, like these 16 guys, any one of us can do it.
Yeah.
Any one of us can. It's going to be these tiny little differences that are going to mean a huge difference. So, and that's sort of why the visualization, Dave, is important. Visualizing your solo drilling with your techniques is important. And then, as I get further here, and I have like mats here in my apartment as well, I'm probably going to get to a point where I start filming and try to really break things down in that regard. I think that's the next step of what I got to do to improve my jiu-jitsu. Because earlier I was trying to finish an arm triangle on somebody, and there was a match at the ADCC trials where I kind of famously held out and escaped one, and my training buddy, my roommate, was resisting. And I went full 100%, like everything I had into it. And the problem wasn't my strength; it was that he had some hands inside there, and I needed to, take a second, look at the problem, solve the problem, and then go back on my choke. But I wasn't willing to do that, and I just tried to push through and be a brute. And that wasn't, I wasn't using the appropriate planning or technique. I was just trying to brute through something, and that is not what I'm trying to do. So I should have had a better sense of awareness in that situation and solve the problem rather than trying to smash it.
Yeah, right. Muscle it out. The visualization. Let me ask one more question about that. Does that go? Is that something you learned in jiu-jitsu? Does that go back as far as wrestling? Is it something you learned on your own? Were you taught? Was it coached?
Yeah. So all of us have many mentors that guide us. Easton Training Center, Boulder, the 3 jiu-jitsu guys that affected me the most, Amal Easton, of course, Elliot Marshall, Foster Bailey. Those are the 3 guys that had probably the greatest impact on my jiu-jitsu. But on my mental side, my strength and conditioning, my approach to competition came from my strength and conditioning coach, Russell Malloy. And that's where a lot of the visualization stuff came from. And so I started with him in 2014, a couple months after Worlds. So in 2014, I'd gotten 3rd at Purple Belt Worlds. I had no idea how big of a deal that was. I thought it was just, this kind of thing. And so I kind of started to think that I actually stood a good chance at this. I talked to Russ and we worked something out. If you're in college and you're broke, people will help you if you sell them the right package. And, we started working there, and then, man, we basically kept working until the ADCCs in 2019. So 5 years, man. And I completely changed over those 5 years. And, it was a lot of growth happened, but, not all of your mentors make you grow in a positive fashion. Some of it is sort of a that negative energy moving you forward. And it's sort of like you can either use the stick or the carrot. And, some of your mentors are all stick, some are all carrot. Probably the best of the mix of the two. Yeah. And, so then that's, 5 years. I got a lot out of it. I absorbed an amazing amount of information. A lot of the myofascial release, a lot of the stretchings, a lot of the exercises I do all come from him. And that's, sometimes how the world works, right? You and your mentors, you link, you get as much as you can from each other, and then you go your separate ways. But that would be where I learned my visualization techniques, was a lot from him. He had me read a book called Heart of a Champion. No, not Heart of a Champion. Mind of a Champion. That's the book. I think I have it over here, actually. No, there it is. Champion's Mind.
Okay.
Yeah. So he had me read that, and there's a bunch of different little exercises in there that can help you just approach competition better in terms of like reducing the amount of anxiety you put upon yourself the day of competition. So it's just kind of ideas of putting that. And that came mainly from Russ, Coach Russ. And that was probably the best application I had of it was the ADCC trials, where I was just chilling, man. I just showed up. Things didn't get started for like 4 hours. I was hanging out. I had my food. I was chilling. Match happened. And I just kept flowing, man. Moving from one thing to the next and trying not to let.
I've talked about that a lot here on the show, where so much of that anxiety is, I don't want to say misplaced, or we put it on ourselves. And these are things that are never really going to happen. Worrying about losing in front of our home crowd, our family, our team, doing something stupid, gassing out. Listen, what's going to happen is going to happen. We wind up putting it, like we put those little seeds in our own mind And sometimes we manifest them. Sometimes we don't. We come out the other side and say, oh, that wasn't so bad. Oh, it was a lot easier. And I know, in the small amount of competing, very small amount of competing that I've done, it's like the match is over before, it's like, wow, did that just happen? Did somebody record that? At least for me, that's how it's happened for me. It's like so quick. But again, we've definitely talked about it a lot. We do it to ourselves. We worry about things that are never really going to happen. So you talked about your gym, or you talked about training kids before. Do you have your own gym, or are you training?
And this quarantine's made everything weird.
Okay.
Like I have, like I imagine every other jiu-jitsu guy on earth. Like I probably should be telling people, oh no, I'm not training. I'm solo drilling. I'm doing all. Dude, I got work in 2 weeks. I got to smash some people. Like that's just how it's going to go down, and I got to get ready for that. And as far as all this, and I'll make sure we return to like the academy and stuff. But just in my opinion on the whole quarantine stuff, like I don't have anybody in my life that I'm going to put at risk. There's no I have no immunocompromised. I don't interact with any older folks. And I mean, man, I've been of the opinion that if you're feeling healthy and you want to go interact with other people and you take the precautions, I work for a PPE company, so I make sure I take the precautions when I go into public and I isolate myself from other people. But, I think that, we all need to make a choice. How long are we going to stop living our lives? And where's the line for you? You got to draw the line for yourself. All of us need to draw the line for ourselves. We can't let some nameless entity draw the line for us. So, that's just my opinion on it. But so where I've been training has been here on some mats, and I've been going to a couple other places as well. But by and large, man, just this quarantine threw everything into a craziness, man. And I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to train on some mats and interact with some good folks and keep growing as an individual, man. That's the main focus for me anyway at the end of the day. And that was what I was going to talk about when we were on that competition thing, is that so many of us stay focused on a results mindset, that we approach competition as I'm doing this so I can take that gold medal, stand at the top of the podium and show all these people how awesome. No, and that exists in all of us, man. And that was what was in me for most of it. Like when I won that All-American title, and I still talk about it a lot nowadays, obviously I'm very proud of it, but like, you want to try and steer yourself away from a results-based mindset as much as you can, because you don't want your sense of self-worth to be based on just a result, because the result you don't really have much control over. What you have control over is your effort that you put in and trying to observe your growth. So, and then that's sort of like that's how I like to approach competition, as a metric for seeing how much I've grown and running into situations that stimulate my growth. Like I think I've mentioned this a lot. One of the best months I've had in my life was June of 2019, and that was after just getting smashed by Lucas Lepre. Just smashed, man, and just my ego was just crushed. And then the month that I had after that was amazing. Getting up at 4:30, getting my exercises in, getting studying in. Like if I could have had 2 or 3 Junes in between ADCC trials and the ADCCs, who knows what would have happened. But so that I just wanted to touch on that real quick, and that approach to competition, and how you want to have that growth-based mindset, not results. And so many of us are stuck on that results. And guess what, bro? 50% of people lose the first round. You're probably going to lose the first round, like most of us do. So don't let that be what you base your sense of worth on, man. If you go out there and you drew the top seed first, you gave them hell, great. Go get an acai bowl. Go start planning out your training for the next day. Like, get back to it. Keep growing. Don't let one event slow you down, man. And I've had that happen many times. Like that depression I talked about in high school. I have been stopped and shut down many times in my life. And that's, I constantly try to fight against that whole depression, anxiety thing. And a lot of what my journey with jiu-jitsu has been is sort of trying to manage that as I try to grow.
Cool. How does this JitzKing event, how is it different compared to like an ADCC or an IBJJF tournament in prep, in that anxiety? Are there any differences for you, or is it all the same?
So as I was saying, I also try to visualize the trip to a smaller degree, like, the big portions of the day, and definitely the events leading up 2-3 days before is going to be completely different, man. Just because, not going to be going into restaurants, not going to have that options. I'm going to have to plan on being on my own, getting food, bringing it to the hotel, managing my own time on my own. The Lyft and Uber are still working there, right? So I won't need to worry about changing that up at all. But there'll be considerations there. But as for the event itself, ADCC rules format, as far as I believe, I hope that's the case. That lends itself to my style powerfully. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And as we were saying, it's going to be a very long, drawn-out process. So I'm prepared to show up and patiently wait 2 to 3 hours for my first match, and then patiently wait another 2 to 3 hours for the next match to come, and just make sure that I have my energy level set to where I can stay low and then spike for the match and stay low and spike for the next match, stay low, spike for the next match and stay low, and make sure that I'm recovering as best as I can in between the matches and not overexerting myself in the times when I'm not actively competing.
How about the prep for an IBJJF versus a JitzKing or, again, an ADCC?
So and that comes down to how the rule sets determine the engagement. It's crazy. Not that many sports, you change the rules a little bit, change the whole entire dynamics of the match. The 3 made ones are IBJJF Nogi, the ADCC rules format, and EBI. So each of those 3 revolve around a completely different approach to the game. And I would say probably ADCC is my best, IBJJF Nogi, and then the EBI. For now, I've been improving my leg locks a ton. Been working on that a lot. My entries, defenses, the whole shebang. And that will make my EBI game more dangerous. But right now, what I'm trying to do is I want to take you down. I want to pass your guard. I want to mount you. Then I want to take your back. Then I want to choke you. And if any of that system gets upset, it's probably going to be a guillotine or you got some offense going. So that's sort of roughly my very basic bare-bone approach to jiu-jitsu. And that functions best in the ADCC format because I'm not trying to pull guard and entangle your legs and look for the little opening of the trap. I want to come forward. I want to break your spirit down for 3 to 4 minutes. And then once you start to get winded, I'm going to take advantage of that. And then I'm going to get a little bit ahead and keep pressing until I get, a good position. And then I'm going to look for some points once the points start. And then from there, I'm going to be going full bore for the submission.
Okay.
And that is my rough outline for every ADCC match. And, in 2017, before those trials, I didn't really have a good game plan for it. And that kind of showed in that performance. But nowadays, man, like I have a very firm, basic, bare bones what I'm going to try to do in the ADCC rules format, and that feeds very nicely. Now, if it's IBJJF, the whole advantages, and and then there's the guard pulling throughout the entire match. Of all the 3 rules formats, I'd probably be most encouraged to pull guard in the IBJJF rules format, as opposed to ADCC or EBI, where I'd probably want to stand and pass. But in the IBJJF, I would feel more comfortable being on bottom just because my whole plan revolves around getting up on points and hunting for a sub. And if it's IBJJF rules format, dude, it's one of the best things you can do is sit your butt in the IBJJF. Yeah. Like, in my opinion, like it's those types of rules, the lack of leg locks from top and passing, I feel it lends itself a lot more towards a sweeper's game in that situation. At least how I would approach the game there. So that's what I would say would really change based on those 3 rule formats. And the one that I prefer the most is the ADCC by far. I want to wrestle, and I want to use my front headlock, and I want to pass the guard. Those are the 3 things I love to do.
All right. Now, is there anybody on this card that you're excited to fight? Anybody that's like you feel like you match up well against?
All of them. Every single one of them. Well, not necessarily match up well against, but I want to fight everybody, man. That I would love to have a match with every single jiu-jitsu guy out there on the face of this planet. That would be it's an impossible goal, but one I'd love to have accomplished. But every one of these guys is deadly. But the guys that consume probably most of my focus are Taza. We had a match back at the BJJ Fanatics Open, and his performance against me is one of the main reasons I've spent so much time focusing on my legs, because I did decent against him, but he got ahead. Have you Eric Paulson guard? Have you heard of this?
No.
So it's like if these are my legs here, normally saddle is going to involve like an entanglement here, and then you lock around one leg. Eric Paulson is locking around both legs.
Okay.
So you lock on the outside of the legs. So he locked on the outside of my legs, and I looked at that and I didn't know what to do. And so I just tried to hide my heel. So I chose early defense A, which is hide my heel and try to push in. But he already had my knee line, so he had my knee isolated. He had my foot isolated, and I just didn't identify how bad of a problem area I was in. So instead of trying early defense A, I needed to roll away from my heel, use my hands to clear my hip, and then from there look to free my knee. So I have a decent idea of what I need to do now. But the problem in there was, like I said, that whole thing about a quarter second. My quarter second was look, and then half a second of and then the wrong choice. And so my inability to look, have the video game button ready to press, and my defense engage instantly was the difference between me tapping and me moving on to the overtime period, which in EBI revolves a lot around the overtime. And I feel I have a pretty good back attack and I've been working on spider web a lot. That's starting from the armbar position. So I feel that had I played a little bit more strategically and in the future, EBI may well be one of the things that I like most. But I don't want to turn that, because that basically comes to a competition of, can you grapple, stall, for 10 minutes, and then who's the best on back? I'll do that game against anybody, man. Yeah. I know there are several to dozens of people out there that would crush me, but I feel very confident in my back attack, very confident in my spider web. So I feel that once it's in the overtime, I do well. But in that time in between, just with how easy people can attack the legs and keep going, like I passed Taz's guard, but he just chilled and kept going. Like it wouldn't have made ADCCs. It wouldn't have mattered because it was still in the first 5 minutes. IBJJF, that would have changed everything. Yeah. Like I would have completely changed my engagement, and he would have had to completely change his. But since it was EBI, didn't mean a thing. I might as well have just done a big dab. When I got past his guard, like it didn't do anything for me. I wasn't able to threaten any submissions off of it, and I had a big mental lapse when I was facing him, where he was offensive the entire time, just looking for leg locks, looking for heel hooks, and I was running away the whole time. I was defending smartly. I was playing good jiu-jitsu. Then a little part of my head was like, dude, this is bullcrap. Where's my offense? This is shenanigans. I've been on the defense this whole time. That was the wrong thing to think, because I was playing I had to play his game. It's EBI. If he's going to sit to his butt, I have to fight the leg locks. And, just kind of led to me falling behind and not really having the tools that I needed to go against him. So it's looking forward to facing him. And then in addition to Taza, Pedro Marino, I actually had a chance to train with him when we were in Houston. He's a savage. I'm looking forward to facing him. Roberto Jimenez. I believe, yeah. No, wait. It's Spanish, so you say the J, right? Yeah. Roberto Jimenez. Yeah. I think
the J is an H. Jimenez. That's fine. Either way.
Yeah. Now in Portuguese, is that different, or am I getting that confused?
Portuguese, it's the letters are, the pronunciations are different, but I still think I think they would probably say Jimenez. I'm not sure.
Jimenez, okay. Yeah. Because the one that I always find funny is when Cyborg says Rafael, and that's supposed to be Rafael.
That's the R's. The R's are H's, except if they're in the middle of the word or if it's a city. I've been trying to get that down from my coaches. Oh, man. It's Rio de Janeiro, but it's, Renzo Gracie, right? It's like, we're getting the ins and outs of that still.
Yeah. That's actually.
How do you feel about combat jiu-jitsu? We talked a little bit about EBI. How do you feel about that whole thing? I'm still not, I don't know. I don't know if I'm sold on it.
I'm not a big fan of it. I see it as, having 1 foot in the ocean, 1 foot on the sand. If you're going to allow strikes, you might as well just allow the full package. But
then it's MMA. But then it's
exactly. And I don't want to talk too much trash, but EBI was invented for Eddie Bravo to attempt to display how his system of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu would dominate any no-gi exchange with strikes being allowed. So his goal was always to make the best jiu-jitsu system for MMA. That's always been his goal. Yeah. And every time he's tried to do that, well, not every time. Gio won, but usually it's not his guys that do too well. Like I think one of the most recent ones, Dan Martinez, guy in your area, he ended up winning the combat jiu-jitsu, and he said he only threw a slap once. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if you're allowing these slaps, but it's not fundamentally changing the game, what's going on there? And, I think that this adaptation of the rules, I can kind of see it, like if I'm trying to stall from bottom of half guard or whatnot, or if I'm just chilling on the bottom of mount, but I just see those slaps as leading into different areas for off balancing. Like if I'm playing guard on bottom and I have my defensive set, or maybe like one hand up and I see you raise a hand up, I'm going to off balance you that direction. Yeah. I shouldn't talk about it too much because I don't want to do it. I watched,
your invite. I think I just heard your email. There's an invite that just hit your email account.
After I watched Wagner go against Nathan Orchard, like I watched that and that settled it.
The spanking?
Dude, it's freaking like palms of death into his hand and his head for like a minute. Yeah. Like a minute, man. Like I obviously no athlete ever wants to tap to strikes, but like, dude, how much should you need to absorb before that ends? And so I saw that, and it's just like, man, with that jiu-jitsu, you could get caught in a bad spot and get slapped out, and that would really be rough. And I'd much rather just get choked than slapped out. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the JitzKing event. Have they gone over? We talked about what's different between events, but have they gone over what's going to be different for you when you show up the day of the testing? Are they doing like a COVID test? Are they just doing temperature reads? Do you have a sense of what's going to happen?
I have to imagine they're going to do temperatures.
Okay.
They're also probably going to have an EMT there looking for people like, oh God, is that a cop? You got to remember, what's really funky, especially right now, because we're in allergy season, sneezing is not a symptom. It's associated with a very small number of cases. So if you're around somebody that's sneezing, it's not a guarantee whether they have COVID or not. But man, if they have COVID and somebody sneezes around you, like we're talking millions of viral particles everywhere. So I'm not too worried about that. Like a cough's pretty bad too, but like the sneeze, and it's funny because it's not a symptom of COVID, but if somebody has COVID and they sneeze, and I think half the people that get it don't have symptoms. Yeah. And so like I was saying, and of all this is just the stuff we know. How much do we not know that's changing every second? And it's just like, man, at some point you got to decide where you are on the spectrum and make a choice on how you want to live your life. Mm-hmm. But I expect they'll be doing temperatures. They'll have an EMT checking for people's symptoms, which are shortness of breath, dry cough, and a fever. And those are the three things that you're looking for. And there are other symptoms, but I don't think those are anywhere near as vital there. But I mean, dude, I think back in the past year, I've had a cough 4 out of the 5 months. I mean, 4 or 5 out of the past 12 months, man. I'm always kind of walking around with something. I think most of us kind of are. Yeah. And it's just, they'll be checking for a cough, they'll be checking for fever. And that's pretty much probably the only thing that's going to get you out of it, because I think 83% of cases have a fever. So if you have a fever, bye-bye. Mm-hmm. But I can't imagine there's going to be the financial backing to get us all tested. I would love to, and I think the government should provide a test for everybody. And that's actually a significant problem that we have right now, that we're testing extreme and moderate cases, but we have no infrastructure established to test asymptomatic people, which means you have these asymptomatic carriers rampaging through our nation, spreading this stuff everywhere. And until we set up the infrastructure to test the asymptomatic people, it's going to keep going through the country, man. So, it's a shame to say that, with that whole idea that if you don't have symptoms, you don't need a test. That's wrong. We only had that because we had such little, material for testing. But if you really want to solve this problem, you need to test everybody, the asymptomatic people too. And that's the only way you're going to track these guys down. Says the, Matt Rat over here, as I, try, play politics or whatever.
They set up, I'm down in South Florida. They set up a testing center, but it's a testing center. But in order for you to get the antibodies test, you have to give blood. It's a blood drive, and then they will also test you. So wow. I don't know what that means for someone like me who's taking so many heart meds. So I usually just stay away from giving blood, period. But that's the only thing that they have down here. It's a drive-through center, and then they have one other one that'll do straight COVID tests at another park. You can actually walk up. One's a drive-through, one's a walk up. So you said you've been all over Florida, right? You've been down this way?
Oh yeah, dude! I had a blast in Florida, man. That was this whole all of January and February, I was just running around the Southeast, man. I had a really good time.
You just went home. You're in Boulder, Colorado now, right?
Been here 2 months, man.
Okay.
It's been good.
And you had just left North Florida, right? You were training. Is that was just were you just out here for a little while, or?
So I spent the timeline, which we can break that down real quick. So I left Boulder on January 8th. I got to Panama City Beach on January 15th, I believe. So it took me about a week to get there. So I went pretty slowly. I went Boulder, Amarillo, OKC, Dallas to Baton Rouge, and then Baton Rouge to Panama City Beach. So it took.
Did you train all along the way? Were you training all along the way? Stopping at gyms?
I trained at Lovato's on a Saturday, and that was one of the more impressive practices that I've been to. And that really inspired a lot of how I said, I basically have a 35 to 40 minute warm up before I even start teaching. Mm-hmm. And when he does his Saturday competition training, he might have changed everything. It might be completely different. But when I attended it, he had everyone would meet up around 8:45. You'd be doing foam rolling. You'd be doing what you got to do to get warmed up. And then, dude, it would take an hour and a half to warm up. Like, it would be a bunch of drilling, a bunch of calisthenics, a bunch of running around, like doing an hour and a half long warm up. And then we started to do rounds. And this was one of my first practices that I was like finally getting back into shape with. And I did 20 minutes with Lovato. And then the very end, what he does to finish up is like 5 minutes takedown entries or sprawls. So you have to do a takedown entry and then a sprawl takedown, and like for 5 minutes. Like, one of the most insane practices I've ever been to. But as I said, that one has really stuck with me as I've gone forward. And I'd like to pull more of that style of training into my academy. But also one thing that he did also talk about is that he takes Fridays off. Okay. So he doesn't do a practice like that on a Thursday or a Wednesday, something like that. He takes a day off, and then he does that full 3-hour session. And I at some point I wouldn't mind adapting that. But on the other hand, like, if you're not properly nutritioned and you're not getting your water through that, yada, yada, there's a bunch of stuff you got to. It's a 3-hour practice. So I was super impressed with that. And then trained in Houston at Gracie Barra there with actually Pedro Marino. We had some good matches, and had a lot of fun down there. That's actually El Patron. Do you know the Patron? That's his name. Oh my God, Mike Perez. That's the name. Do you know Mike Perez?
No.
Oh, well, he's Atos guy. Him and Mo Jassim. I'm sure you know Mo Jassim are buddies. And I met one of his friends that I was there, and I'd actually had a wrestling match with one of their black belts like 5 years previously. So that was kind of a funny little quirk. Small world, especially the grappling world. And took off from Houston, went to Baton Rouge. Actually, I was there the night that they won their national title, and I was actually sitting next to a nice couple, and they got me, a couple, shots of tequila, and I got to enjoy the game with them, and it was actually had a really good time in Baton Rouge, and then Panama City Beach, and so basically from January 15th until March 14th, so just about 2 months there, 8 weeks. I was just traveling the Southeast. And of those 8 weeks, I think 4 or 5 of them were in Florida. So I went from Panama City Beach to the Tampa area, and then Sarasota for a couple days, then Miami, and then Jupiter for 3 or 4 days, then up to Atlanta. Then I did went to Dallas, competed there, went back to Atlanta to Chattanooga to Charlotte to DC, and then DC, Charlotte, Atlanta, Tampa.
I'm feeling very lazy right now, Bo. I'm feeling super lazy right now.
Oh, dude, it was. I should be so much better on my taxes and all that, and I've got time to get it together. But somewhere around 12,000 miles, easy, of driving over 9 weeks. Yep. It was quite the adventure.
Wow,
and,
jeez.
Yeah, it led to a lot of growth, man. I was traveling to seek adversity, and I found it. It was great.
Yeah.
I went, just speaking of Lucas Lepre, I went to go train with him in Charlotte. I sought out great leg lockers. I sought out people skilled at jiu-jitsu and, learned from as many people as I could on the trip. And, I think it paid off a lot. And the best part of all this quarantine for me is that I went on this grand, 2-month-long adventure. And then I just got to come back here and ruminate on it. And, I spent a month chilling, not doing a gosh darn thing, got a day job fabricating PPE. And then
who's that with? You want to tell us a little bit more about that? Because I saw, again, stalking your Instagram before the interview. So
yeah,
for the last week. So is that a buddy of yours? Is it like an apparel company, and now he switched over to creating PPE?
Yes. So this company is Rocky Mountain National Events, or it might be Rocky Mountain Events. I think it's just RMN. But regardless of the name, they do wrestling tournaments all over the United States, and they had a very small side business where they made custom gear called Extreme Pro.
Okay.
Main company is Rocky Mountain Events, and then they have Extreme Pro, which is part of it. They would work closely with Seth Daniels when he would run his Fight to Win and Fight to Win Pro. So these guys basically run wrestling tournaments. That's their main business. That got shut down. So they switched over to doing a little bit more custom gear. Those orders dried up. Then they decided, like a lot of other companies that make clothing and whatever, that they would switch over to making PPE. And Seth, I was training with Seth one day and saw on his Facebook after I was hanging out with him that he's like, yeah, if anybody wants a day job, you got this thing available for you. And, I've been kind of thinking like, man, I this check could be coming for me on the unemployment insurance because I had applied for it. But I was just, kind of on the fence and, just decided, dude, I'm literally sitting here ruminating in my juices for, 16 hours a day or whatever it is. And I was just like, man, let me get out. And so went out, started working, and that So that kind of got me stuck in a productive state of mind. And it took like 6-7 weeks for that to start bleeding into the rest of my life. But eventually, as you know, so I got a good garden going here. I cleaned up my room. I've got my life together here, trying to get my diet back in order. And it's been a slow process, but exponential one as well. The past week and a half has been really good. The 7 weeks leading up to it were like okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right.
But yeah, the company, so they make the PPE. I worked with them. I helped them make about 100,000 pieces, and now they're continuing to make. Oh yeah, they're making a lot of personal protective gear. What they offer, their main thing is it is custom gear. So if you have a different company, like I was meaning to talk to JitzKings for quite a few days, because they can make gaiters for you, which is in my laundry hamper, which is a scarf that'll come up to here. Yeah. And it's in the laundry. I'll get it later. They also make face masks, which aren't quite as cool, but you can get your logo printed on there. You can get a big JitzKing, and they do orders of that custom. So it's custom apparel, made in America. The turnaround table on it's about a week. And, it's just an American company here in Colorado. So if you want to support that, you can go to XP. We just want to search XP Gear, and then that'll take you to the website. And, you can go there and you can start checking out some of their basic gaiters and face masks, or order a custom, give them a call and order a custom order.
Very cool. Good. So we're going to get into some listener questions now. We have a big part of the show. We spoke about this before or yesterday, you and I. We love giving stuff away. So one of the things that we did was we let listeners send in questions. We answer them on the show. We get 2 bottles of CBD from Fight Back CBD every show. And we'll also send out a $25 gift card to our shop, our jiu-jitsu-dummies.shop, our podcast store. But before we do that, I just want to give a real quick shout out to We Defy. Thank them for all their support and all they do for veterans in the jiu-jitsu community. For those of you who don't know, they provide therapeutic relief to disabled combat veterans through jiu-jitsu. You can check them out at We Defy Foundation on Instagram, and you could donate anytime at wedefyfoundation.org. I think, did you say that you've done something with them in the past, or you knew of them?
Yeah. I forget the gentleman's name. Pardon me. I believe his name was Kevin. Okay. I might be very wrong about that, but I think his name was Kevin. He came and ran a seminar that myself, Alex Huddleston, and I want to say Ethan Snow. I think the 3 of us participated in an event they put on, and it was just seminars, and it was donation based, and they took money to help, as for a great cause. But did a guillotine seminar. I think that was in 2018. Not entirely sure about the timeline on that, but definitely helped them out. Great thing. I personally know the powers of jiu-jitsu's ability to heal one's soul and body and mind, and so have an organization that's providing this incredible entity that can do so much good for one's life to people that need it more than just about anybody else. They people that have sacrificed their own freedom so that all of us may enjoy ours, and have very difficult personal positions. So having have that option to do jiu-jitsu, something that is great.
We're actually going to be doing they're going to announce it this weekend. We're going to be doing a Zoom meeting with some of the founders of We Defy. So we're going to have our podcast patrons, those all my patrons from Jiu-Jitsu Dummies, they're going to be invited. And then anybody who donates $5 to We Defy is going to get an invite to be on this Zoom with the founders of the company. And we're going to just do it's not going to be recorded or aired anywhere, but we're just going to do this private, one-on-one session with the owners the founders, and be able to ask some questions. And we're going to see how it goes. And we might launch it on a larger scale with them. They were nice enough to invite us to meet myself and Junior, one of my co-hosts, to host the event. So we're going to be doing that next Saturday, actually. So really cool. Let's get into our listener questions. So MLJ Rico on Instagram, he asked, do you study your opponents like fighters? If you had a coach, does your coach do the same in preparation for guidance? Are you studying film?
Not as much as I should, man. I do way more instructional study than I do live film study. I would like to incorporate more film study, but I find it difficult, especially when I'm engaging with 16 people, trying to anticipate what exactly they're going to do. I was fortunate with my last 2 opponents, Cody Steele and Pedro Rocha. We're both wrestlers, so I had a pretty good idea of how that was going to go down. If I have a specific super fight opponent, I'll watch a match or two of theirs, but I definitely am not as refined on. I don't know if that's tactics or strategy. I think that's a strategic thing, like studying what your enemy's going to do, like Art of War. And I would like to spend more time on that, but with the amount of time that I have available that I put time into, it's much more studying instructionals right now. As I get closer to the ADCCs, there will probably be this group of 15 to 20 people that I am very closely studying. Of which, 15, 20 people that I'll be closely studying. But really, what it comes down to, man, is if I can master the leg locks, improve my wrestling, get my front headlock nice and sharp, and make sure my defenses to most like submissions you can run into when you're passing are sharp, I feel pretty confident against anybody. You look at the top 5 guys, wrestling's going to be the answer to most of those puzzles. So, the 5 guys being JT, Gary Tonin, Wagner Rocha, Dante Leon, Hanato Kanuta.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Next question here. Ray of Flight 3567 from Instagram. He says, and we'll note that we're not doctors. So studies have shown that working outside does not spread COVID-19. I'm not sure how true that is. Mm-hmm. So gym owners in China have kept their classes outside and have not infected anyone, even if they had COVID-19. Again, questionable. But is there any talk about doing BJJ outside that people can still continue to learn? I'm butchering that question. Sorry about that. He's basically asking: Are people here in the U.S. taking their jiu-jitsu programs outside as a way to combat COVID or at least stop the spread? Have you seen that at all?
Well, so the problem with jiu-jitsu and COVID is just the directness of personal contact. But I believe that if you are having a face-to-face conversation with somebody and they have COVID, it's not like the second you talk to them, you're going to get it. Mm-hmm. I think it takes about 5 minutes. My mom actually sent me a really interesting article talking about how you need about 1,000 viral particles to become infected. So if you just breathe in one viral particle of COVID, your immune system's going to take care of that. You need a certain threshold of viral particle to then become infected. Okay. And to get that viral threshold, like if you're sitting at a restaurant with somebody that has COVID is in there, just because you're next to them isn't a guarantee. Where the air is flowing is the important part. And so where they're breathing, if that gets into an air conditioning stream, and you could be 30 feet away from the person, but their viral particles could be blowing into you and you could be breathing them. So especially with jiu-jitsu, if you're outside and you're 6 feet or greater, and I think actually I've heard it's more like 13 feet because it's aerosolized, so it actually gets in the air and it stays there. It's not droplet, because there are 3 ways that diseases can transfer: either bodily fluids like HIV, droplets, which is the flu, or aerosolized, which I think measles is another great example of that. Like that's incredibly contagious because it'll get in the air and stay there for 20 minutes. Okay. So so somebody could come in there, breathe in the room. You could walk in there with nobody in the room and still breathe in 1,000 viral particles and become infected. So the problem with jiu-jitsu is that if you are going to grab anybody for more than 5 or 10 minutes, that's the time. If they have COVID, you're going to get it. So if you were going to do that thing in the park and you wanted to really be safe, you'd need to maintain social distance and have people do solo drills or drills with a dummy. And why even go to the park then? Prop your laptop up, do it outside on your balcony or something like that. Like, why even meet up in those large groups? And that's where brings me to my answer to him is that it's going to be small groups. It's going to be 4, 5, 6, maybe 8 people working together consistently. And that's what jiu-jitsu is going to probably look like until all this goes over. Because, the stuff I read today kind of spooked me, man. It looks like the pockets are coming back up. We shouldn't be negative about that right now. But I perceive that going forward, there will be mainly small groups of people working together consistently over time in order to try to quarantine themselves in sort of like a quasi way. But if you get even 10 people and they're closer than 6 feet and somebody has COVID and they're in that proximity to each other for 30 minutes to an hour, somebody could breathe in that 1,000 viral particles, man. But that's kind of that magic number. If you breathe, and that's what I said, like when somebody sneezes and that's millions of viral particles just flooding the room. So, I try not to worry too much about it.
I think when people think about training outside or the benefit of being outside has been the light, the heat and light. I
Will
think
kill
that's
the
where
virus,
the
yes.
confusion comes in. It's like, yes, again, if somebody sneezes in your face, inside or outside, it's not going to matter. But if
Yeah.
you're outside, little distance, sunlight, but I really don't think we really know.
Yeah.
So much of
When
this is still
like if I'm just doing snatches and cleans and there's somebody 6 feet away from me doing the same, no problem. But if you've got two people doing jiu-jitsu with each other, problem. And that you just can't. You need the live body. What you can do with that one, you can make a dummy, you can do solo drills, you can do a lot. But if you're going to actually do jiu-jitsu, you got to touch the person and be in their bubble.
Yeah.
And that, the only way to do it is in small groups of people consistently training going forward. I don't see many other ways that it's going to happen going forward. And we will get the other side. Like, it could take a year, 2 years. Things will get close to normal. It might take a long time, but we'll get through all this. So I'd highly encourage people, keep training. And if anything, not to be a world champ, but just to keep your head on right, dude. Like I'm in a much happier place now than I was 7 weeks ago, when I was just sitting around moping in my juices for 16 hours a day. Kind of fun, like, YouTubing it up for 16 hours, that was a little interesting, but, I'm in a much better state of mind now. I'm keeping myself moving forward and trying to accomplish things day to day. And I think a lot of us are stuck at that zero momentum. And, but I think we all got started on this, like how working out outside. I have heard UV radiation, all that fresh air should kill it. I don't buy it. If you're touching somebody, I don't care where you are. If you're in their bubble for 5 minutes, you're probably going to get it.
Gotcha.
Whether you're outside.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right, next question. This is from Frank House. He is one of our new podcast patrons. He says, I'm a white belt for 10 months. I feel like I'm progressing okay and do decently against similarly experienced partners. It seems, though, that I have trouble with brand new people. We've got a couple of real spazzy younger guys. Welcome to the party, pal. I'm 39. He says he's 39, and they don't know much. It seems like because they are so active and unpredictable, I have problems submitting them. Our roles tend to end up with me locking them down while they wear themselves out for 5 minutes, trying to choke me while I have them in close guard. LOL, he says. So they don't really threaten me, but I have trouble getting anything done. What advice would we give to Frank?
Well, advice I would give to you, Frank, is that, your goal, especially as a white belt approach to jiu-jitsu, like, I think the concepts of controlling somebody and getting them to do what you want them to do come later in the game. So right now, you shouldn't expect yourself to be able to roll with a fresh white belt and guide them forward. That's the job of the purple and the brown and the black belts. They should be the ones that kind of up. And you basically never see that at the academy. I could count on my hands the number of time I picked a 1 or 2 stripe white belt that I'd never met before, had an interaction. It was like, hey, come here, let me show you how to train. So it usually is these higher level white belts that have to train with the new guys. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't at all, but that's what happens. That you are entering a situation that requires a skill set that you have not yet developed, so you shouldn't feel too bad about not being able to control a spazzy person. That's one of the highest level skills. Like, most black belts get hurt going with spazzy people. So you're facing a very common and a very difficult problem. My suggestion to you would be, let them spaz out, ride out, try to encourage them to relax a little bit. But it's, somebody's first 6 months of jiu-jitsu. They're going to be coming hard. That's what all of us do. We have that default, like, this is a fight, I'm going to smash. And that's not always the best way to handle it. I would encourage him to rather try to become unpinnable amongst his peers. So focus more on his escapes, more on your solo drills, more on those mechanics, so that once you start to develop some offensive skills, you have the defensive skills to fall back on. So basically, that's what it all comes down to, is don't feel bad that you don't have this ability to control these spazzy people. That's something even the highest level black belts struggle to do. So I wouldn't feel bad about that at all. And I would instead change your goals to, rather than try to control these new people or try to really show them the best way of going forward, which, that's what you should do as a high level, is obviously be an example for people, and they try to follow you, and you keep everybody's growing at once. But, focus more on how you interact with the people at your side and above you, and less with the people below. Now, you're going to have to try and bring them up. And as I said, try to get them to calm down a little bit, maybe show them some solo drilling. It's a difficult problem, and one that I haven't engaged with that much, because most of the training I've done, as we've discussed, has been traveling around and interacting primarily with purple belts and above. I haven't had that much interaction with fresh white belts, and that's a conundrum that is a problem we all deal with. I think most the time I got closest to being injured was going with a white belt in Atlanta. and I got very close to getting injured in an inside heel hook, but luckily I was able to, get around it. But that's where most injuries happen, and it's a very difficult problem that you face. What was this gentleman's name again?
This is Frank House.
Frank. Yeah, so I would say try to become unpinnable amongst your peers and guide the people coming up as best you can, but just understand you don't have the skills to control them yet, so I wouldn't feel too bad about that. And just the big thing I'd say is make sure that you're having a good time and they're having a good time and that both you guys are growing. It's slow growth in the beginning, but make sure you guys are both enjoying jiu-jitsu. So that'd be like try to get them to enjoy jiu-jitsu rather than to get them do jiu-jitsu well. Like that should be the jobs of other people, should be focusing on making them do well. No offense, 10-month-old white belt. Your job should be setting a good example, being unpinnable amongst your peers, and trying to guide them through as an example. That would be my suggestion, Frank. I hope that helps in some way.
And I would add to that, jiu-jitsu itself is this huge puzzle.
Yeah.
This is one of those puzzle pieces that you're going to have to deal with, and congrats, you get to figure this out. So, I look at something like that as a challenge. I'm glad he is asking the question. This is part of that. Seek out the knowledge and try to figure this out. That you're going to encounter way bigger problems in jiu-jitsu than the spazzy white belt. But I do agree with you, right? Most of the time the injuries come from somebody that's just flipping out, big guy throwing his weight on top of you. That happens. But just embrace this, Frank, and utilize this as a way to learn. I started older. I've always loved to train, whether it's work, whether it's jiu-jitsu. I always loved to teach people stuff. So I started at a gym where I was one of the very first students, period. So I was always the higher white belt. As I went, I was always a ranking practitioner. So I was always teaching these spazzy white guys what I knew as much as I could. So again, I've always embraced that. So if you're somebody who likes to teach, it's okay to, hey, listen, you mind if I show you something? And, you guide these guys a little bit. Like you said, a lot of training comes from, of a new person, comes from the white belts.
Yeah.
Most gyms don't have all 20 newbies over here and all of my blue and above over. It just doesn't happen like that in most places.
The complete opposite. Complete opposite.
It's like they grab them by the gi belt and throw them right into the line sometimes. Well, but
it's like instead of them matching up how they're supposed to, they just fold up over here. So like all the advanced guys go with all the advanced guys and all the beginners have to go with the beginners. It should be, at least there should be a round or two where like advanced students have to take the beginners. But and I mean, that's just the natural order of things. Like if I'm going there to train, I want to obtain as much benefit out of a practice as possible. And this is an interesting thing I remember reading about how, like, if an advanced student works with an advanced student, the benefit that the advanced student gets is X. If the advanced student works with an inferior student, the advantage they get is like X.9. So pretty much the same. But if you take an inferior student and you match them with an inferior student, it's terrible. It's terrible. Neither of them can really figure much out. But if you take that inferior student and you match them with a advanced student, the inferior student gains tremendously by working with that advanced student. So I get it from a selfish standpoint, but in order to maximize everybody's growth, you should be trying to at least 1 or 2 rounds of practice, try to get your advanced students to work with your less experienced students. I say that, but I'd never lived it as I was in my academy days.
And the last thing I would say about that is, Frank, when you're, work on your skills. You're 10 months in. Okay, you're almost a year in. I'm sure there's some things that you could be working on. Utilize that time to work on things that you're weak in. And again, on the other side, and I've said this a million times on the show, at any level, it's okay to grab your training partner and say, hey, why don't we work on this? Let's start here. If you've got a guy that's in day 1 and he's rolling, let's say week 1, week 2, and coach says, okay, let's roll. It's okay for you as the higher belt to say, hey, start in my guard. Or let me start in your guard. And let's work on passing. We're both going to work on passing. You pass, I pass. Your coach is never going to say, what are you doing? He's going to actually appreciate that. He's say, okay, my 2 white belts aren't about to kill each other. I can go over here and concentrate on these guys. So again, that's a piece of advice that I would give. So
that is excellent advice, Milton.
So last question. You might know this guy. This is at Eduardo Colon 3 on Instagram, or at Eduardo.Colon3. Do you know him?
Let me look up his profile.
You might know this guy. I understand that he's actually an undefeated IBJJF champion, but that's completely unconfirmed. He wants to know
Uncle Coach Kevin.
He wants to know who's your favorite event announcer.
Ooh.
Do you know who it is now?
My favorite event announcer.
Do you know who this is now?
No, dude, I got.
He's one of the guys from JitzKing.
Oh, he is? Okay. So I bet it's going to be Pat then, huh?
No, it's Eddie. It's Eddie. It's Eduardo.
Oh, it's Eddie.
It's Eddie.
Oh, shoot, man.
We had him on the last episode. Apparently, he claims to be an undefeated champ, but he wanted to know who your favorite event announcer is.
Well, I should say Eddie, right? That would be the JitzKing.
Bruce Buffer. Let's move on.
But I will say I do kind of, Seth kind of rubs me the wrong way from time to time when you're actually talking with him, and he does some impressive things, and I appreciate how he runs the ship and does that announcing.
Yeah.
I don't think there are many human beings that could keep that ship together that he does, and I certainly appreciate that he does it. And I think most all of the pro jiu-jitsu organizations that exist today, except for maybe Kasai and a few others, as we've openly discussed, they owe our roots to that fight to win pro that Seth put on, man. So, maybe not my favorite human being of all time, but definitely a rad dude, done a lot for the sport, and I think that he does some great stuff. But yes, Eddie, you are in there at number 2, my friend.
Okay, there you go. He's gonna like that.
Yes.
And still, his record is unconfirmed.
Yes.
So, all right. So we do a little speed round, and I probably have to change this name from speed round questions. These are questions that we've come up with over time as a team here on the show. We ask almost everyone these same questions. Again, we can go through them fast, but we can elaborate as well. Sometimes we do. So if you could go back in time, what would you tell the white belt you? That moment before you stepped in the gym or on the mat the very first time, what would you tell yourself?
Glute dominance. Focus on developing a strong posterior chain so you don't ruin your lower back. That's probably right around 2017, I hit an injury that took me about 2 years, really. Well, a year and a half. From about mid-2017 till the ADCC trials, I had a really bad lower back injury, primarily caused by very hyperactive abs and quads and not really identifying that and just letting it linger for years. And then that showed itself in a really bad back injury, lower back injury. And it took 2 years to recover from that. And that's been a big part of what I've been doing the past year and a half in order to kind of fix my lower back pain. I don't really have lower back pain at all anymore. And, I feel a lot stronger, more agile, and just all around a more competent athlete with the glute dominance. And so, there are other things that I could say, like the visualization, with maybe like the concept of a high wrist and the centerline switch. That would be a good one. I remember when I watched John Danaher's YouTube video on the guillotine, that kind of irritated me because what I thought I was doing, I wasn't doing, but what I was doing, I was actually doing it the right way, and it was just kind of irritating. But yes. So where did we get there? Sorry, I got totally sidetracked.
Visualization. You were talking about some of the other things you would tell the white belt you.
Oh, yeah, white belt me, yeah. So that glute dominance, just because it would have led to more effective use of my time and less time spent injured. And
so elaborate on that a little bit. You've talked about that a few times. I'm not sure how much you went into it at the beginning of the show. I forget. But what exactly are you doing?
So it'll be like using the So Right or a foam roller, or I have this crazy back thing, or a wand, or I use a metal bunch of different things to try and loosen up my quads and my hip flexors, the rest of my muscles in my body, loosening everything up. And then there are a series of exercises that I'll do that try to target the posterior chain to try and get it stronger and more dominant so that it's the actual force. And the way I like to describe it is it's like a giant grabbing you here and then and then the end of your toes right here, and then that giant pulls you apart. And that's kind of what your posterior chain does, is the giant has those two grips there and it pulls you apart. And that when you're in we're meant to be in that most of the time. But if you look at jiu-jitsu, top of side control, top of mount, passing close guard, we're always in this bowed spinal position to try and control somebody. So we permanently get stuck here. And this is where we feel great. And this is, dude, I lived here for a long time. I lived here. This is where I just was. And this caused a lot of damage by just keep my pec super tight. And by calming everything down and pulling my shoulder blades back, that actually has led to a pretty sharp decrease in I have a heart arrhythmia, actually. That's actually, not crazy, but right around 2014. I got electrocuted a couple times and then developed an arrhythmia. Nothing fixed it until I saw, and this is one of my sponsors here, I saw Pat's Chiropractic, and he adjusted my thoracic vertebra, and that actually took care of a lot of my heart arrhythmia. And I realized that my posture was kind of heavily connected to, there's probably a nerve that's getting pinched or something, but when I'm in good posture, I don't have that arrhythmia. But it was scary, dude. It would go like beep, beep, bloop, reset, beep, beep, bloop, and that would be like my heart when I would be going to sleep. It was spooky.
Wow.
Yeah. So funny thing, the chiropractor fixed my heart injury. Really kind of a strange episode. But and then since then, trying to keep myself in that good posture. But I kind of realized that you can't just fix the bones. Like, you have to fix the fascia, the muscle, and the bones. Okay. So that's where all the glute dominant stuff comes in, is trying to get the muscle and the fascia and the bones all aligned the way that they're supposed to, so we have the proper posture that we're supposed to have engaged. And that leads to a decrease in injury, increase in general happiness, increase in ability to train, which is all everything. This is what this is all about, right? Trying to maximize our growth through jiu-jitsu. That's sort of how I see it.
You talked earlier about, you said, I should put out a video about this. You did a BJJ Fanatics, right? You did a...
Two.
You did too.
Yep. Mastering the guillotine and then the no-gi game plan. So the guillotine side of that's sort of specifically what I do in that regard. Things that I've studied from other people and a couple drills and some interesting things. And the no-gi game plan is just like a generalized lesson that I would like to give to any blue, purple, or brown belt. Like, kind of like the things that I think are most valuable for me. I spent a lot of time talking about posture, talk about how to walk properly, talk about various concepts of when you're engaging somebody on the feet, like how you want to be standing, how you want your hands to be set, the grips you use, how you move, and then some basic passing, and then how I attack the mount and how I attack the back. So that was kind of the rough ideas. Like, the whole idea of jiu-jitsu is get the fight to the ground, get past the legs, hierarchy of mount, get the submission.
Any plans to do any more of those?
Yeah, I was talking with Joe. That was the podcast I just most recently did with BJJ Fanatics. I think I did that 2 days ago. It was a lot of fun. Really like Joe. He is an All-American wrestler as well. He apparently got 8th at the NCWA, so that was fun. That was a fun thing to find out. And I don't know, man. Like, and this is something that I've always had a bit, I guess, dilemma is the right word for it. But like, I'm in such a absorption stage of knowledge. Like, I'm trying to absorb as much information as I can from as many different sources that I don't really feel I'm able to put together the package that I would like yet and ship that out to people. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to say they were the lowest quality product that I produced, in those instructionals, but that they're works in progress. And I feel that what I'd be able to produce in 3 or 4 years is going to be way greater than that right now, as I try to absorb more information, make it a better package, and deliver it to people. Because I think where instructors in the next 3 to 4 years are really going to shine is how well can you take all this information that's out there, get it into a digestible format, and give it to the people that want to learn. Yeah. And like, whoever can figure out that process of not just obtaining the information, but packaging it and delivering it to people, that's where the future is going to be. Like, Keenan is probably the guy who's done it, as well as anybody. So I would like to, at some point, start something along those lines. But as I said, right now, I just feel like I'm in such an absorption and growth phase. It's a slight cop-out, but, I feel it's just going to take some more experience, more study, more pulling these different instructionals together, and more instructionals that I'm not really happy with. Sometimes you just got to go out there and make as best you can and learn what you can from that and make a better product the next time. Mm-hmm. And that's all these competitions, right? Like, most of my competitions as black belt were losses. And like, every time you lose, it sucks. You go through your darkness, but then you grow back like the phoenix and you get stronger. And the more you lose, the more you have the opportunity to grow.
How long have you had your black belt now?
4 years as of June 18th.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been great.
You had that first degree on there?
Yes, sir. I've got it. It's right hanging up there on my wall, man. Very cool. Yeah. It's crazy how, like, it feels like my brown belt days weren't that long ago, but then, like, I take a look at the timeline and it's just like, oh, wow, yeah, there's a lot of things on there, man. Yeah, that was a pretty, a lot of losses, a lot of injuries, a lot of good things as well. But I think when especially jiu-jitsu athletes kind of look back on what they've done, most of us have kind of a rough tale to tell. There aren't too many guys that just win everything. Gotcha. There are some of them, there are a few Nicholas Maragales, there are some Gordon Ryans, there are, there are people that dominate really well. By and large, most of us suffer a lot. Half of everybody loses in the first round, and it's going to be mostly losses. Like even those of us such as myself that get to taste that great glory. I had 3 huge, really meaningful events for me where I All-Americaned, where I won Pan Ams and the ADCC trials. So those are 3 amazing, stupendous events. But underneath all that is like, bro, 200 events that sucked. So like that's just the nature of this. And you have to love that process of going out there, getting crushed, beaten down, and then being forced to grow stronger. So you get broken, and some of us become stronger at the places where we were broken. So that's sort of how I view competition. I like that idea of trying to grow through. Yeah.
So other than achieving the rank of black belt, which you've done, what is your ultimate goal in jiu-jitsu? Do you have one?
Yes. And I've tried to think of like the best way of putting the concept into words, but just sort of wholeheartedly embracing every process of mastery, which means not just having great technique and trying to, piece together the parts that you have, but always in a constant search for new information, always looking myself over. When a blue belt or a white belt says something that I immediately in my mind just want to brush off, it's like, no, there could be something to that. There could be some very valuable information there. I'm not going to allow myself to just cast it aside. I'm going to take an honest look at it and try to absorb that information as best I can, looking for information in everywhere I can find it. And then taking what I can, trying to process it down, making it valuable, and just trying to hone that process. Not actually trying to reach some destination in particular, but just trying to find the best way to learn jiu-jitsu and the best way to live a lifestyle that's conducive to jiu-jitsu. Because I sort of see the jiu-jitsu is like plants. They make poisons. So it's sort of like jiu-jitsu I kind of see as sort of like the chemicals that like the organism itself produces. So it's like the organism produces it, but a plant relies a lot on its environment. So I feel a lot of jiu-jitsu guys are just focused on how can they make their poison as deadly as possible. They're not focused on the environment for their plant. So that's where a lot of my focus comes in, like trying to eat and drink on time, trying to get to sleep on time, taking the right supplements, trying to focus on that environment around you, how you study, how you train, how you prepare for that. So every environmental component that you can gain some control over is where a lot of my focus lies. Not necessarily just the greatest jiu-jitsu. I'm trying to study that. I'm trying to get as poisonous of jiu-jitsu as possible, but I'm wholeheartedly focused on that process of trying to make the plant as strong as possible.
I like that. Poisonous at jiu-jitsu?
Yes. And that's what most athletes are considering. Like they most of us.
Somebody send me that shirt. Somebody put that on a shirt and send it to me.
Most of us jiu-jitsu guys, man, we kind of screw off a little bit. We show up and, the warm-up was 10 minutes ago. Let's train. And we just kind of get the training. We do our thing. And it's just like all I'm trying to do is like get better at rolling. Maybe I drill 5 minutes after class, but that's what I do. I do 10 of those a week. And that's how a lot of jiu-jitsu guys operate. And that will get you good. But I'm not after good, man. I want more than that. I want to find the best path forward to improve myself in both personal and jiu-jitsu. The jiu-jitsu being the poison part of the plant, and then the environment being my own life around it. So that's sort of the metaphor that I've constructed for that, and just sort of what my goal really is finding the ideal environment to enhance your growth in jiu-jitsu.
Very nice. I like it.
Process, work in progress. And that's what it all comes down to, right? No destinations, only journeys.
All right. The next question is, what is the craziest jiu-jitsu related thing that's happened to you on or off the mat, even an event? Craziest thing.
Woo! Definitely Copa Podio when, after suplexing Herber Santos and the people like chanting my name there, that is something I don't know how many like tens of thousands of humans in history have gotten to enjoy. Like that sensation of an entire room full of people just 100% behind you in your corner, chanting your name, just the energy fully consuming you. And the weirdest thing was that I had lost. So I had slammed Herber twice and then he submitted me and the people just kept chanting my name. And it was like the sensation in that moment of just like, there was more going on in that room than just jiu-jitsu. There was something else going on in there, some like human spirit, yada, yada, whatever you want to call it. But like in that moment when the crowd got behind me chanting my name, like I felt something there I don't think I'll ever feel again. And I think that sensation of just people being wholeheartedly behind you, it happened once before in my league finals because I was fighting somebody in wrestling that wasn't a good friend that people did not like. So they were wholeheartedly behind me. But that wasn't anything like what Copa Podio was like. So that would absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, be the craziest thing that's happened to me in jiu-jitsu. And that's on YouTube. Flow Grappling put it on YouTube. So if you want, it's just John Combs, Argentina. It'll pop up. It's 15 minutes. It's a good time. I think it's a great video.
I'm going to take a look. All right, so this is one of our newer questions. And I don't know. I'm testing this one on you, so I don't know how people are going to feel about answering this one. So, what's your biggest weakness? What's the thing that you're always working on?
Heel hooks and knee bars, brah. Heel hooks and knee bars.
Okay.
Knee bar. What's the knee bar, Milton? That is. Oh my God! Like if you look at my like circle of jujitsu knowledge, like talking about poisons and whatnot, and like you'd have like little branches going off from the center, so like your arm bar, your triangle, your front headlock, all your various systems. Like I've got a decent idea of straight ankles, offense and defense, an okayish idea of outside inside heel hooks, but man, my knee bars are a gigantic hole in my game. And then, the heel hooks are also, I will never have as much information as I need on heel hooks, knee bars, straight ankles, that whole leg lock attack. That's definitely the area I'm weakest in. And I would say that comes from the, I don't want to say the word incorrect, but I disagree with the concept of a lot of gi jiu-jitsu schools where they say no straight ankle. They strongly discourage straight ankles, and then they do not allow toe holds and knee bars until brown belt. And I understand the value behind that, but I didn't learn heel hooks until 2017, a year into black belt. Like really? I learned some kind of shenanigansy defense, but I never really learned leg locks. I didn't really seek them out because they just weren't a thing that was exchanged that much. And granted, another part of it was I just didn't have much interest in them. Mm-hmm. But I never early on studied leg locks. I studied a lot of passing. I studied the back attack. I studied various guillotines, front headlocks, kimuras. Like I studied a pretty complete picture of jiu-jitsu. But my pin escapes and my leg locks were two areas that kind of withered. And over the past 2 years, that's been the areas I've been trying to grow the most. So I'm trying to get that circle of jiu-jitsu knowledge that's complete. And that, like I said, you don't obtain that. That's a journey. And every day you got to try and, pay the lease on that journey. And maybe you can get close to having that complete set of knowledge. But nobody has it. Not Gordon, not John, not nobody. So, it's that process of trying to obtain that full picture.
All right. Next question is, again, this is one of our newer questions, and so we're testing these out on you. What do you do when you're not on the mats? I saw a pitch of you working on the mats with your friends. We talked a little bit yesterday about gardening, which I'm dying to get my new house to plant my own garden, like when I was a kid and tended the garden with my father. So what do you do off the mats?
Well, I have picked up in the past, 2 or 3 weeks, a little gardening habit. I'd kind of been throwing the idea around. I'm here in Boulder. It's beautiful right now. I mean, springtime and like late springtime in Boulder is one of the most magical times of the year for this area. So I have, as I showed you a picture of right behind me, I have a pretty nice little patch of green. And, I just got inspired, wanted to, I'd spent so much time in this room, which looks nice now. It did not look nice Monday. Did not. No, it was a mess. Disgusting. And I just kind of I'm sure a lot of us are right now, is ruminating in my juices, man. I tried my best to keep things clean, but, things weren't great in here, man. I mean, dude, it took me 15 man hours to clean my room. And, the gardening is probably another 10 or 15 that I've done. And that's all in an interest of trying to create a better environment for myself right now, because I spend so much time in here now. And it was just kind of me realizing that, man, this is I'm not feeling good right now. I'm not excited to come home. I don't feel happy here. So I changed the environment. That's probably going a little too extreme, but just that I didn't feel I did not enjoy the presence of my home. And so I decided to change that. Planted a lot of different plants and I actually planted a lot of vegetables and flowers and whatnot. And that's all just trying to, as I said, create that environment that will maximize my jiu-jitsu growth. So while this has also been done in an attempt to improve my own health and happiness, it is primarily, as my main goal, is all trying to get closer to that process of perfecting my rate of progress of improving jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Something. Yes.
All right. Next question. This is a big one. Mm-hmm. We ask all these questions, but this is my favorite, and I think this is probably the most important question I'll ask you today. Now, let me ask you this first. When was the last time you trained in the gi?
This week for sure, Wednesday.
Okay, so recently. Okay.
Yeah.
So we ask this question of everyone. Mm-hmm. Do you wash your belt, and why? Do you or do you not wash your belt? And why?
I have never washed my belt, and it takes away all of the information and power. All of the soul juju just disappears when it washes.
Yeah.
I mean, so that comes to there is quite a bit of negative dark side energy that courses through jiu-jitsu, like habits that we do that don't necessarily improve anything, like the concept of like if you're a purple belt and you got beat up coming up, that you feel you got to beat up on that blue belt, and that cycle of being hard on people, like, oh, we're gonna beat the crap out of each other, everybody's gonna get tougher. It's like, a little bit that's okay, but really there are some other. So there are just a few things that I don't necessarily agree with on that cultural side, and that's definitely one of them.
So wash or not? What you wash?
Yeah.
Okay.
I try to smell, and I have three. I have three black belts. One that I use commonly, and I will wash that when it smells bad. Another that I'll use if the other one's not quite ready, and then the one that I actually got promoted. 2016. I keep that separate. I don't wear that one. I lost it for a few months, and then I found it again. And that one I'm going to hold on to. That of any belt that I have, that's the only one that has true significance. Like I have other, like I have a white, a blue, a purple, and a brown, but I don't exactly know if those were mine. I think they were. I don't know. But this one was tied on my waist. This is my black belt.
We'll put you on Team Wash Your Belt. There's going to be a big flashing hashtag on the screen when we put the video out that says Team Wash Your Belt.
Yeah.
So, all right, John. Let me give you a chance to shout out your sponsors, training partners, anything that you anybody you want to say hello to or send a thank you to. This is your time.
Oh yeah. Well, let's start it out. I got my list. So thank you to Genesis. They got some great rash guards. They got some great shorts. They got great kimonos in order to garb you before you do your jiu-jitsu. They have supported me quite well. I'm looking forward to wearing their gear when I go represent JitzKing. Big thank you to Penguin Fingers. Can you see that? Oh, yeah. Look at that little guy. Yeah. Cold compresses for your fingers. Can freeze them. They take about an hour to freeze. Take them out, prop them on your fingers. Great for maintaining hand strength and taking away the little aches and pains we get in day-to-day life that are part of jiu-jitsu. Whether you're training in the gi or not, your fingers will get hurt. Get some Penguin Fingers to help maintain them and keep yourself healthy. Then we also got Cat's Chiropractic. He's the guy I was saying I saw him first in 2011 to take care of a shoulder injury, and then in early 2014 to adjust my thoracic spine. That did incredible work to fix a heart arrhythmia. Like actually, before I'd seen him, I wasn't even able to do 30 minutes of activity, and then after he adjusted my T-spine, I was able to do 2 hours again. And that was just insane. That was also I was 23 then, so I definitely should have been able to do 30 minutes of exercise. So big thanks to Katsu. He's done a lot to help my spine over the years, and more than that, helped me fix out just about every injury I gotten over the years. It's very difficult to maintain a good pace of momentum going forward in jiu-jitsu because you get injured so much. So having a good healthcare professional on your team is vital, and I'm beyond grateful for Dr. Katz. In addition to Dr. Katz, I have Dr. Vasily Iliopoulos. He runs Rocky Mountain Regenerative Medicine here in Boulder, Colorado. They have some insane space-age treatments, and they've done a lot to help me out with ozone therapy and whatnot, with the various things that he likes to do there to help improve people's general health. So a big thank you to Rocky Mountain Regenerative Medicine. And then another quick shout out to Revo Sports Therapy. He was this gentleman, Matt Smith, ran that. He did a lot of good things for me in my preparation for the ADCC, so I'd like to thank him as well. And let's finish up with JitzKing, man. We're talking here because of them. This is the first event that I think is going on since quarantine began. Am I wrong? No.
Their first event, yeah.
They're doing that's today, right?
No. Their first event is June 13th, but then they're doing something right after that, I think.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. I think I'm on with them on the latter part of June. I'm not sure. I know I'm with JitzKing and grateful for them. But good. Big shout out to them for getting back on with our normal lives. Like I said, it's that continuum. We all got to pick where we're at, and I'm ready to get back to it. Let's get back to training. Let's get back to living. Let's try to maximize ourselves. And one thing that I did want to mention on the COVID front that I've heard a few other people talking about, especially like Joe Rogan, is just how let's focus on building our immune system and making each human more able to fight this off, rather than just trying to keep ourselves isolated away from each other.
Agreed.
I think so.
Agreed.
Yes. Vitamin D.
Yep. All right. Very cool. John, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you doing this. You've been great. You gave us a lot of great advice. We're going to let you go, but good luck at the event. I hope to meet you. I don't know if we could shake hands. We'll wave awkwardly at each other, but good luck at the event. Again, hopefully we meet you up there, but anytime you want to come back, after you win the entire event, come back on, tell us about it, so.
Milton, one thing I can't say, when I had my first initial JitzKing, that would have been last year in July. I was in Tampa, but Dan Martinez had a very good time against him. I expected to get a crown, Milton. I thought if I won that, I was going to get the stinking crown. So I was bragging about that, and I won. And honestly, that the wooden plank, which you can see, these things,
I like those.
I'm stoked on them, and that was cool. That was a nice consolation prize.
And you got a big check? Did you get a big check?
No, because I was a super fight.
Okay.
Now, if I win, right. When I go to the 16-man bracket and I win the whole stinking thing, I want that crown.
I got you, yeah.
I want that crown in a very spiritual kind of way. I really want to seize that. The money would be great, sure, whatever. But I fought for JitzKing twice. I've been on every event that they've done. And I just feel that this event is leading up to feed perfectly into where I'm kind of peaking right now. I expect a lot of other people are peaking as well. We'll find out who has spent the past, 10 weeks? Who spent these past 10 weeks better? Let's find out. I spent it terribly for 4 weeks. I spent it great the past 6. I'm ready to see what's going on. I'm ready to, get back out there and do the thing I love more than anything else in this universe, and that's compete in jiu-jitsu.
All right, John, again, we appreciate you. We're going to let you go. I want everybody else to stick around. We're going to read off some of our giveaways, but we appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I'll let you know when we air this, probably Monday or Tuesday, okay?
That is amazing turnaround.
All right,
sincerely appreciate it. You have a great day, sir. Whoosh.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. You take care, man.
Ja.
All right, everybody, stick around. We're going to go through some of our giveaways. We're going to talk a little bit about the 20 gift cards that we're going to be giving away, the $25 gift cards. So let's give the rundown. Let's get rid of John here. All right. So thank you again to Fightback CBD. Use code JJD for 50% off your order at fightbackcbd.com. Check out the podcast store at jiu-jitsu-dummies.shop. You get 10% off with coupon code DummiesPod21. And we have new ranked rash guards, T-shirts, face shields, or those gaiters that John was just talking about before. We have our logos printed on those as well. Backpacks, coffee mugs, and you get free shipping on orders over $50. Okay. Anybody out there would like to work with the show, sponsor, we've got a new backdrop that Bo designed, or you want to donate products for giveaway, please reach out via email or on social media at Jiu-Jitsu Dummies, pretty much anywhere. That's Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, and Twitter. All right, you can also visit our website at jiu-jitsudummies.com, and you can send an email to info@jiu-jitsudummies.com as well. Our contact page lets you suggest a sponsor or suggest a guest, potential guest, and tell us who you want to see on the show. So podcast patrons for March, April, and May, we've just started to announce and send out packages, so that's been really cool. So thank you, everyone, for your patience. We appreciate you. Britt Tover is our first podcast patron winner for March. Her package just went out, so she won a flow kimono, a bottle of Fightback CBD, and a few other goodies that we put in the package for her. So thank you for your patience, guys, and it's going to pay off with the stuff that we're sending out. If you'd like to become a podcast patron, visit patreon.com/Jiu-Jitsu Dummies. You can join, support, and be automatically entered to win 2 drawings. Both of those drawings are at least $100 in Jiu-Jitsu swag every single month. I believe that we'll be sending a gi out to every winner, and that gi is going to be the ones that we're working on with Flow and Roll. Okay. We're also including in those giveaways, in that raffle, essentially, any of the listeners who submitted questions that we use on the show. Okay, you're automatically entered into those drawings as well. So good luck, everybody. So shout out to our newest podcast patrons, Frank House. We just used one of his questions on the show. Liam Berg, who's listening overseas in Scotland, and Wolseley Rivera down here in Florida. All right, those are our newest podcast patrons. But we want to thank, let's get a good shot of this t-shirt, Bo. All right, shout out to Boa Athletics. You can check them out on IG at BOA_athletics. They're one of our podcast patrons. Thank you guys for the shirt. We appreciate you. Also want to shout out Michael Pixley Jr., Jason Smiley, Eric Perkins, Again, Britt Tover, James Fisher, CJ Carroll in Mission 22, Chuck Reddoor, and Roberto Santiago. You guys can check me out at Uncle Milty BJJ on Instagram, and you can check out our Jiu-Jitsu Dummies Foundation at the JJD Foundation. Again, on IG, on Twitter, it's the JJ Dummies FDN. Right, we're still raising money for the foundation, where we're going to be awarding a scholarship to a deserving child in need. That's going to come probably before the end of June. We'll be giving away our first one, so that's going to be really awesome. So you're probably seeing the GoFundMe link on screen right now, but it's also in the description on the podcast. All right. There's still time for you to enter our really big giveaway that we're doing. It's $500 in gift cards, so it's $25 gift cards to the podcast store. That was in celebration of us reaching our 20th episode last week, and 10,000 likes on Facebook, along with about 3,200 followers on Instagram. We're right there. As soon as we hit 10,000 likes on Facebook, we're going to do the raffle essentially and give everything away. All right. Again, that'll be gift cards to the jiu-jitsu-dummies.shop. Okay, so in order to win, you've got to subscribe to, or this is how you enter. You have to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's free. Follow us on Instagram. That's free. Like us on Facebook. That's free. So for each person, though you do those three things, you're entered to win. For each person you tag on Instagram or Facebook, you're going to get one additional entry, right? If you become a podcast patron, you'll get one additional entry for each dollar you pledge. The smallest package is $5 a month. All right, that's it. Pretty simple. Maybe I made it a little confusing, but I think it's pretty simple. Bo's laughing at me behind the camera. He's like, yes. All right. So big shout out again and a thank you to JitzKings. We've got their banner up in the studio. Thank you to Flow and Roll. Both of them have been really great about helping us, get the show out to the masses. JitzKing and introduced us to John. So big thank you, and I think John was great. So thank you to Bo behind the camera, and that's it, everybody. I appreciate you guys all for watching and listening. Just stay safe, stay home if you can, and we'll see you on the mats pretty soon. Us.